My buddy Dan Costa is a bonsai artist. He's a member of the Prairie State Bonsai Society, and he has taught me a few things over the years about bonsai, and the most important thing he's taught me about bonsai, and I want you to remember this because you're going to tell your friends later in the day about this. The word is bonsai. It's not bonsai. You say bonsai when you jump out of an airplane. These are bonsai. Did I get that right, Dan?
That's correct. That's right.
And Dan, you've been doing this for a long time, and you've got some beautiful specimens. This is in Dan's backyard. And let's start with, because you've got so many, we're not going to be able to see all of them. Let's start with the most spectacular one. I love this plant. What have you got here?
This is a ponderosa pine. It was collected in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, and the tree is probably over 200 years old. The wood is the growth rings are very close together, so the wood is very, very hard.
We could actually count those growth rings and find out how old it is.
Sure, if you want to spend a week doing it. And the tree grows very slowly. It only puts out about maybe an inch at most per year. So
and you're constantly grooming, aren't you? You come out, you take a look, and you just mentioned something that's pretty spectacular. This one is growing pine cones, and you would think, well, how can a bonsai grow pine cones?
Starting to get ready to actually cone, which is kind of neat.
So what that tells me, it's got enough nutrients, it's got enough energy to do that. So what's in the pot?
The pot is a mixture of core, which is a coconut fiber material, and a particle called Soil Master, which is a calcined clay. Looks kind of like kitty litter, but it's a harder material. And this is our drainage material. So I mix mostly the drainage material, the Soil Master, with some of the core for water retention. It's very well drained soil. I can pour water on here and it goes through almost immediately.
And now we have another one. Tell me a little bit about this tree.
This one is a Japanese white pine, and it's an import from Japan. You can tell that it's an import because white pine will not withstand the importation process that the USDA requires of removing all the soil from the roots. So white pine has to be grafted on Japanese black pine rootstock in order to be imported. It's the only way it'll survive the trip.
I never knew that.
So this is black pine on the bottom, and then the rest of the tree is white pine.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And
all right,
it's a very short needle form.
Let's look at some of your. I'm going to slide this out because we have a whole mess of bonsai behind us, and as you've also said, you can take almost any kind of woody plant and create a bonsai out of it, right? So, for instance, what have we got here?
This one here is a cedar elm, which is native to Texas, and again, it was a tree that was collected there. In the springtime, it leaves out with the small green leaves, and then it grows the leaves throughout the summer. In the fall, it turns yellow.
Now, you have formal containers here, but sometimes you get a natural container, and that's what you've done here.
Kind of shows really the way that the trees would grow in nature. Pull these labels out. In nature, a lot of these trees would be found growing in little pockets in the rock. And that's why a tree like that can be 200 years old didn't get 200 feet tall, because the roots were restricted. So this is growing in basically about a cup of soil. And it's been in this pot for almost 10 years, in this rock. Found the rock at a pet shop and thought they would make a wonderful bonsai pot. Then I was thinking, what would I plant in it? And I remembered I had this little dwarf Japanese black pine. And so I put that into the pot.
The last tree we'll show is this one, which is in training.
Yeah, there's wire on the branches, which allows me to move the branch into the position where I want it to be. So the branch may be out here, but I want it out to the side because this is my front side of the tree. So I don't want a branch coming straight out. So you wire it and then you carefully bend it into the position where you want the branch to be seen. So it looks it's like the vision that you have for the tree. Because when you start doing a bonsai, you want to make sure you have an idea what the tree will look like in the end. You don't want to just start cutting and moving things around without a plan.
So very briefly, we've talked about the fact that they stay outdoors. What about water and nutrients? What do they need in terms of water and nutrients?
You know, they need to be watched carefully for watering. Usually during the summer months they get watered every day. So I do come home after work and water my trees. As far as nutrients, it just depends on the kind of tree and what it's doing. A tree like this that's in good growth will get fertilized once a week with a good basic fertilizer. A tree that's not doing a lot, like the older pines, they only grow in the springtime, so they'll get fed then, and then get a little bit of feeding in the fall.
I wish we could show folks all the trees that he has here, but we want to thank you for inviting us into your yard and teaching us a little bit about bonsai.